on about feminism. Now, this year, the social media hashtag Press for Progress is a rallying call to create gender parity around the globe. Now, according to the World Economic Forum, equality rate is now actually in retreat, and it will take another century for both genders to stand on equal footing. Education is key to unlocking opportunity, but less than 40% of countries around the world provide girls and boys with equal access to education. Two-thirds of the 774 million illiterate adults are women. As many as 15 million girls each year become child brides. And the World Health Organization estimates that about 1 in 3 women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual violence. What does feminism look like in Kenya? And do we understand the concept? My panel this morning, I have David Otieno seated closer to me. He's the Secretary General for Grassroots Human Rights Defender Kenya. And next to David is Rachel Mikali Mweni, who is a women rights activist and feminist. Next to Rachel is Aisha Ali Haji, a writer as well as feminist. And on the extreme end is Pastor Gowi Odera, who is a pastor at Nairobi Chapel. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Let me just begin by giving a clear definition of what Nigerian writer Chimamanda Adichie had to say in regards to what feminism is. Take a look at this. It's coming up on your screens right now. This is how Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, a Nigerian writer as well as feminist, has described what feminism is. And it says, a feminist is a man or a woman who says, yes, there is a problem with gender as it is today, and we must fix it. We must do better. All of us, women and men, must do better. But take a look at this other tweet that I also came across. Your decision to not cook for your husband is not feminism. Feminism simply means women can be more and aims at eliminating gender-based bias in terms of equal compensation, opportunities, and treatment. What's your definition of feminism? We want to know what's your definition of feminism this morning and whether you advocate for it. So make sure you tweet us at KTN News, at @Zinzi_K. Pastor Gowi, as a person, as a spiritual leader, what's your definition of feminism?
I don't think I have. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure if I have a definition of feminism, and I suppose this was going to be posed to me. But I think, like any philosophical position that people will take, I would think that if we were to define feminism, and I'm not sure how I can be able to define feminism, is if you'd like me to take a stab at it, it's a place of promoting the gender roles for women.
Right.
And you don't necessarily have to be male or female to do that. And for lack of better, being simple, that is what I would attempt to do it. But I'm not sure if I have a concrete definition.
A concrete definition.
Yes.
All right. And David, I will pick on you too because you're the man in this forum right now.
Okay.
Yeah. David, what's your definition of feminism?
Well, I want to agree with Chimamanda about saying that feminism actually is not about, it's the role of both men and women.
Right.
And to me, feminism can be defined from the perspective of patriarchy, which is a system that subjugates women into submission, or maybe looking at them as lesser citizens. So feminism to me is basically a movement against patriarchy, and the aim is to achieve social, political, and economic equality for both men and women. So that's how we define feminism.
All right.
Yeah.
And for you, Aisha? If someone asked you, what is feminism?
Well, feminism for me is a movement and a system that we're trying to sort of put in place where we... Well, suddenly blank. Okay, so feminism is a system that seeks to do away with the oppression of women,
right,
to change the system of patriarchy that is in place across the world in many different societies.
Okay. But Rachel, is it just the oppression of women? Because we keep saying that it is equal rights for both genders. Because as much as like we have seen, and I will share a few statistics later on, yes, as women, we do suffer in a few areas, especially the girl child, like I've said, the early child marriage, education, jobs, etc., the gender pay gap. But also there are certain places where men are now a bit lower and women dominate in that area, or things that affect the boy child that don't necessarily affect the girl child. So is feminism just for women and uplifting the female?
For me, like I look at an angle as feminist activists, whereby majority, like the way we have been raised and socialized, the structural system favors the boy child and the men, not the women and the girl child. And that's why you see, like, even with the theme like press to progress, it shows like how far we have come as women, because our spaces we have been fighting for it. It's not like we've been given in a silver platter. But also in terms of the Chimamanda, whereby she's saying, it's also like men can be feminists, but you want these men also to talk about the oppression that is facing women. But still also I agree in terms of also we have the patriarchal system, which has been freeing men, whereby it also made them to be catalysts of also patriarchy. Like I'll give an example whereby when you're raising your kids, both girls and boys, most of the boy child, they are told like for you to be strong, you have to be masculinity, like you have to be tough.
You can't cry.
You can't
show
cry,
emotion.
of which I disagree with
Right.
it. I mean, a society whereby even if things are hard for men, also they need to cry. And that's why also it brings like an aspect whereby if you don't tell them not to cry, they're able to come and also like oppress women and oppress girls in a manner which we are not being given will to talk as women. And that's why also like it comes in terms of also like the spaces that we have in the society, even religion, which sometimes I think also is like one of the offender of women's rights. Because you find like you've been told as a woman, this is not your space. As a woman, you're supposed to be here. So you find it infringes our rights in a manner whereby we cannot express our rights. And if we come strongly expressing our rights, we are told you're not that type of woman.
But I mean, we also have to agree that there are certain areas that the boy child is also oppressed.
But they're oppressed by you, they're oppressed by men, the same men as them, not women. Women, you don't oppress men.
Aisha?
Just to add a bit onto that.
Right.
So oppression is about systems of power and power dynamics. It's not just about somebody hating somebody or somebody being bigoted towards a person. It's a lot more deeper and more detailed than that. So a system of power needs to be present for oppression to be considered an oppression. So when we talk about patriarchy as a system of power and a system of oppression, then we mean that systematically in our communities, in our institutions, we all live to uphold patriarchy. That's why then it becomes a system of oppression.
Right.
So when you talk about there are ways that the boy child
is suffering.
Oppressed and is suffering, it's true, but there are other systems of oppressions that affect men and boys that also we need to sort of
and speak on their behalf.
Speak on. Now the issue comes in because men are not oppressed because women are fighting for their rights. Men are oppressed because there are other systems in the world that work to oppress men. Capitalism, poverty, and this kind of things. So because of those things, then men get oppressed. But when we conflate issues and decide because of feminism is what is oppressing men, we kind of twist the words to make it seem like it's a correlation when it's not really a correlation.
Pastor Goi, do you agree?
I take exception to what Rachel has said, in the sense that I'm not sure it is an individuals, and I agree with Aisha here, is that it is systemic. It is systemic, and the social construct has been developed by people who've come from, who have mainly been men. Economic systems, political systems. It's mainly been men who've been there and perpetrated a particular understanding of their world, view of their world. Women were not involved in the, in the table or when it came to negotiating a lot of things of what we have today. And that's why it is there. So when you talk about feminism, I would think is a place to correct that. I'm not just sure it's women's rights. I think it's a human right in itself. So to put it just for women in itself, I think that you're pointing it just to one particular place. But I think when we talk about it, if a woman is disempowered, a man is disempowered in itself. I think there's a place where we need to be able to know we were created in God's image equally. To experience creation equally, and so in looking at all these things, to be able to point out to a particular individual, I think is not appreciating the whole perspective, the
whole movement.
Yes.
Rachel, you seem to be disagreeing.
I disagree because like the systematic system that oppress women and men, as much as we have like the institutions which are more patriarchy, like an example, like Kenya is a very patriarchal country. even looking the way like our president gave the slot of cabinet secretary, we could see it clearly it's more dominant of men. As much as we want to give justification that it's not about, it's about like God like created us equally. I disagree in terms of when it comes to opportunity, it's only men. And for example, like me coming from an informal settlement like Mathare, and being a feminist from the grassroots level, I know how it feels when it talks about women's rights, the way people want to strangle your neck. I know how it feels when you go to the streets and we are agitating for our rights as women, the way even we are viewed as feminists, we are viewed as if we are against anti-men, which is a lie. That's a narrative that we need to correct it. We are about fighting for an oppressive system that's anti-patriarchal, anti-discrimination, anti-capitalism, anti-militarization. It's a space whereby we are fighting for women to be free. Because when you're having like the way we have been socialized in a private sphere, whereby it's a more male-dominated, it oppresses us.
Okay.
A lot, it oppresses us a lot, and in such a way, in a manner, but we cannot speak.
David, you can jump in.
Well, what I want to say is that not all men are patriarchal or benefit from the patriarchal system.
Okay.
Similarly, not all women are feminists. And as my colleague has just said, is that patriarchy is a system. It's an ideology, it's a belief that enslaves both men and women. And you find that if you go to Mathare, where she comes from, Mukangemi, where I come from, realize that the capitalist system that perpetuates these patriarchal structures strangles both of us. You find that even those men who cannot access job opportunities and they are married, those women who are married and therefore they cannot access socioeconomic rights, you find that they're all victims of this capitalistic system. And I believe that moving forward and looking at the space of feminism in Kenya, I think even the feminist activists need to understand that it is not a case of men fighting women, or women fighting men. But it's a situation of us addressing, changing this system. That's why we believe in social justice, in human rights. We believe that every citizen has rights and should be able to access both social, economic, and political issues that without any discrimination altogether. So I would say that I would agree with you, Amanda, again quoting her, saying that I mean feminism is that system of that belief that all of us in the world have to fight for equality, have to fight for equal space for everybody, regardless of them being males or females. And
that both men and women have a role to play. I'm coming to Aisha in just a moment. David, I would like to still pick your mind a little bit. As a feminist, if you found yourself in a position where a boy child was more of oppression in a situation, because we normally say, yes, empower the girl child, but also strengthen the boy child, that they may walk hand in hand together. You don't want to leave anyone behind. So with that in thought, with that in the back of your mind, if you saw an example, a situation where it was now the boy child being oppressed, being a feminist, would you stand up for that boy?
Definitely, because if you look at even the Kenyan Constitution, it talks about every Kenyan. It doesn't say every boy child, every girl child. And the moment we start looking at the society as a person, without saying that as a man I need to be having better rights than the woman or as a boy child, and you find that the reason why even the women are clamoring for their rights is because the systems there have been oppressive to them. So feminism should not be a movement seeking to replace patriarchy and to start oppressing men also, but it should be a movement that is seeking to correct all that has been wrong, and now they're moving forward, creating a society that is inclusive, that respects everybody regardless of their race, their gender, their beliefs, and what they want to be. As long as we have a government, look at Kenya, for example. I've been asking myself one question. If today we had the Senate or the National Assembly consisted of all women, will we have achieved feminism? Will we have achieved equality for women? So we should not look at it from the perspective that me, when I'm sitting here, I'm talking on behalf of men, but I'm talking on behalf of people or individual Kenyans who deserve. So as a human defender, when I'm in the streets or when I'm advocating for this right, when we want healthcare for all, we want all the women, men, children, both boy, girl, and girl child to be able to access when they go to Mathare Health Center or Kangemi Health Center, they should be able to be treated equally, not saying that women should be on this side or men should be this side. So that's what I believe in.
Aisha? Okay,
so something he said earlier about not all men benefit from patriarchy. Actually, all men benefit from patriarchy. That's why the whole system was put in place. Some women benefit from patriarchy as well. Women who align themselves with patriarchal values get rewarded for it. So that's why you'll see a lot of women are also working hard to maintain the system. However, all women are oppressed by patriarchy. So what this means is even if you do somehow benefit from patriarchy as a woman, you also find yourself being oppressed by it in some ways. So, and he talked about the fact that feminism is not just a system to uphold women, but we should talk about everybody and everything. And that's the thing that people don't seem to understand about feminism, in that when you're a feminist activist, when you believe in feminism and you're for women empowerment, then you think about all other systems of oppression and all other systems of power in the world that oppress people.
Okay.
Can I say something?
We'll be right back. We're taking a very quick break, and we'll be right back with that specific conversation. We still want to hear your thoughts, so I'll be taking a look at some of your feedbacks on social media. Stay with us.